Hello and welcome. Once again, my computer goes crazy right at the beginning of the show. So let's here we go. Start over again. Hello and welcome to the Way to Wow Business Lessons from the Military. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel. And if you have missed the last couple of shows and are wondering why a business guy and a rabbi is talking about business lessons from the military, is because I spent 16 years in the United States Navy as a chaplain, during which time I worked with Marines and sailors and soldiers and airmen and Coast Guardsmen and even public health. I forget what it's called. There's like a public health corps officials on various things. And through that, including my time at the Marine Corps distance learning program, learned quite a bit about military doctrine, and as well as a student of military history and especially great leaders of the military, have come to appreciate the lessons that we learn in the various branches that can be applied to gaining success in the business world. So having said that, also talking with a friend of mine last week, he is putting me in touch with a couple of veterans who have become very successful in their civilian careers, and they're going to come and talk about how what they learned in the military helped them achieve that success. And so we'll look forward to that. In the meantime, we started last week talking about how the fundamental principles in Marine Corps doctrine on warfighting can be used in order to develop a successful plan for starting and running a business. And so we're going to continue with that this week. This is part of what will end up being a 4-week series altogether. There's 8 principles. We'll cover 2 a week. And so let me go ahead and share my screen so we can start this off. Oh, and there we go, share. And let's see, where's slideshow? Here we go. Okay. So this is the same presentation I used last week, although I've updated it a little bit. And here, let me move this over here so it looks like I'm looking at you. And this is the show. So as always, I reference the 3 pillars of attainment because that is really the core of everything that I talk about on the various Way to Wow shows. We're dealing primarily here in the pursuits pillar, and more specifically in the finances realm. I think you will find, though, that these concepts apply to many other areas of your life. And I'll from time to time make some comments on that as we go. So just real quickly reviewing from last week. So these are, fundamental principles of warfighting translated to business. Oops, there we go. Let's go back to these. So the first 2 that we talked about last week were unity of effort and concentration of power, or what we would probably call in the business world resources, right? So I was talking to a friend of mine who recently was promoted to CEO of the company she works for, and I addressed this issue of unity of effort to her, and she couldn't have agreed more that one of the biggest problems that businesses face is a disunified effort on the part of people in the business, in terms of everybody focused on achieving the mission and the goals of the organization. That's a key, if not the key issue that especially senior leadership should be focused on, is getting everybody on that same page, everybody working toward that the accomplishment of that mission. And then concentration of power or resources. So then concurrent with that is to provide people with the resources they need at the time they need it, where they need it, et cetera, so that they can be a part of that unity of effort, right? So whatever those resources are, whether they're capital, whether they're people, whether they're supplies of some kind, whether it's knowledge of some kind, whatever those resources are, key is to make sure that they're concentrated toward meeting that unity of effort. Okay, so that's what we talked about last week. So then this week we're going to talk about two more principles or fundamentals of warfighting that apply to business, and these are initiative and agility. Okay, so let's take initiative first, and so I think initiative shows up in a number of different areas within a business organization. Okay, one of the primary areas where it's important is in building an organization where everybody in the organization feels empowered to take initiative toward the goals of the company. Okay, so if you look at how the Marine Corps operates, starting from the time you're a corporal, you are formally given authority to take the initiative. Now, that isn't to say that as a corporal, you're going to plan and launch a major battle campaign. Of course not. However, as a corporal, you are expected to have knowledge of your section of the battlefield and to make recommendations to people senior to you in the chain of command as to how best to use the resources at your command in order to meet the objectives. Okay, so as a corporal, you're not there just to take orders and move. You are there to push information up as well as bring information down. And by the way, even as a lance corporal, you're getting prepared to do that. Okay, so these, and by the way, a lance corporal is, let's see, in the Marine Corps, a lance corporal, I believe, is an E3. Okay, so the way the personnel structure in the military works is you have E1 is the lowest level of enlisted. So, for example, in the Navy, that's what's called a seaman recruit. In the Marine Corps, that's a private. And then an E2 is a PFC, a private first class. An E3 is a lance corporal, and an E4 is a corporal. In the Navy, an E4 is a petty officer third class. So you can see in both of them, at the point where you get to E4, you are now formally part of the command structure, or the leadership structure is probably a better way to put it. Okay. And as such, you are no longer there solely to take orders. By the way, and this is not universally true, although it's certainly true in the Marine Corps, especially in, for example, the infantry, even a private or a private first class is expected to take initiative and to convey information to leaders senior to him on what he sees that may help them be more effective in achieving their goals, their objective, whatever it is for their platoon or their rifle team or whatever configuration they're in. Now, and then there's this saying in the Marine Corps, by the way, it's called the strategic corporal. That's not just a sort of a fun way of talking about it. They literally mean that leadership starts at that level. Okay. And in the Navy, for example, in an aviation squadron, seaman recruit is not going to be in a squadron. They'll be in training. Apprentice seaman is an E2. So if and you may not get to a squadron even as an E2, but as an E3, a seaman, right? That's pretty much the lowest level. It's likely you'll become a plane captain. Okay. And a plane captain is responsible for deciding whether an $80 million jet leaves the deck of an aircraft carrier. That jet, by the way, could be manned by a commander, an O5. Okay. That's a senior officer. And if that E3 decides, nope, we're scrubbing this launch, that's it. It's done. The O5 cannot call the launch commander and say, I'm overriding the plane captain. The launch commander is going to say, no, you're not. Get your plane off the catapult and get in here, by the way. And he's gonna say, what the heck are you doing? You have no authority to do this. Why are you trying to override the authority of your plane captain, who's there to make sure you don't die? I mean, literally, right? So the idea is push the ability to take initiative as far down your organization as you can. Okay. At the lowest levels, you want people taking initiative to meet the goals. Now, of course, you don't want them going off half-cocked, as we say in the military. Of course not. However, you want their ideas. You want them to feel empowered to move on their ideas. Now, that may be going to someone much more senior to them and saying, hey, I have this idea on how we can achieve our objectives better. Here's what it is. What do you think? Okay. Now, if it's been tried before, okay, and it didn't work, so then sit down with the person. Look, we tried that before. Here's how it worked. Here's what the results were. Why do you think, and in light of this information, why do you think that you might get a different result? Give them an opportunity. Don't just shut them. Oh, we tried that before. It doesn't work. No, that's not the right way to handle it. The right way to handle it is to see, maybe they have some new wrinkle on that idea that's worth giving a try. So the very least you should do is sit down with them and take their ideas seriously. Okay. You see this also in the submarine community. On a submarine, the CO, the O5, listens to everybody on the boat. You only have about 110 people on the boat. Every single one of them is crucial to operations, whether they're a culinary specialist or whether they're in charge of maintaining the nuclear reactor powering that boat. It doesn't matter. If somebody has an idea, the CO and the XO are going to listen, and they're going to listen seriously, okay? Because you never know where a bright idea is going to come from. Now, in the submarine community, most submariners they're nuclear qualified, which means the Navy spent $1 million training them, minimum. These are bright people. The fact that they may be young and may be very junior in experience and leadership that's a factor, but it doesn't mean that they're stupid or should be treated that way. To the contrary, they're there doing the work day in and day out. They're the ones who are going to come up with maybe a big change, but more likely an incremental change. But if you get 10 incremental changes that makes your boat work better, you're light years ahead, because it's typically small improvements that add up that make an organization, or in this case, a submarine, work better. Okay. And going back to the Marine Corps, it's the same thing. When you've got a rifle team or a platoon, that's a very small unit. A rifle team is three people typically. A platoon is 3 rifle teams plus leaderships. You're talking about, I think, about 12 to 15 people, perhaps, something like that. Okay. These are small units at the very beginning of the tactical level of military operations. And yet they're the ones that are going to make an operation successful. So they're on the ground. Their eyes are seeing what's happening, and their ideas are valuable. That's no different than the employees in an organization who are in customer service or in production or in whatever it is your business is doing. No matter how junior they are, no matter how new they are to the business or how low on the totem pole they are, that has nothing to do with whether they can come up with good ideas. And you want them to. Those good ideas are gold, even if they're small, because again, in your business, incremental progress is going to mean much more than trying to make some big, huge shift. First of all, it's hard to make big shifts in a business. People are resistant to big changes, but small changes are much easier to institute. And if you create a culture in your company where the most junior people have a sense that if they take the initiative, at least they'll be heard, they'll be listened to, their ideas will be given due consideration. You're going to build first of all, you're going to build an organization that will be able to change more rapidly, which we're going to talk about next. And second of all, you'll be building loyalty in your organization. And third, you'll be building a leadership succession, because people will want to stay there because they'll see that they are valued as an employee. And especially for younger workers, that's incredibly important to them. They want to feel like what they're doing has value. And if they don't, they're going to quit. That's just how it is. And by the way, as much as you hear all this terrible stuff about young people, they have no commitment, they have this, that, blah, 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 blah. If you're an old guy like me, how much more would you have enjoyed your career if, as a young person, you could go to your boss or even someone senior to your boss with an idea and be sat down and said, well, tell me more about this. We tried something like this and it didn't work, but maybe you've got a twist on it that we didn't think of or we didn't try. I want to hear you out on this, because you may be onto something here. So let's take some time to talk about it. Let's take a half an hour to talk about it, whatever. Okay, that half an hour that you spend, while you may be super busy or whatever, you may not be able to spend it, right at that moment. So let's sit down tomorrow for half an hour. Let's, go get yourself on my schedule for half an hour. Let's talk about this. That half an hour in terms of building a relationship with that employee is incredibly valuable. Okay, so build into your organization a culture of taking the initiative. Okay. And obviously make sure it's contextualized properly for the level that the person is at. Okay. But then reward initiative, and not just monetary reward. Recognize the value that you place on someone taking initiative. And by the way, unfortunately, we don't have time for me to tell the story about my father taking initiative. But when my dad was in the Navy, he took initiative, and it ended badly. So badly, my father thought he might get kicked out of the Navy. Quite to the contrary, though, the captain of his ship sat down with him, talked about lessons learned, and then said, "Carry on, Mr. Bemmel." And my dad was shocked. And his CO said to him, "You've shown something that it's so hard for me to teach, that you will take initiative. And I value initiative. I'm telling you, I think my dad would have sailed into a hurricane for that captain because of how he handled that incident." So even if you've got an employee who takes initiative and it turns out badly, well, that happens sometimes. Okay, value the initiative, figure out the lessons learned, and then say to the employee, "Hey, I'm glad you took initiative. We learned some good things. You learned some good things. Now, next time you take initiative, it can be done better than it was this time. But hey, good on you that you don't just sit around collecting your paycheck, that you're really fired up about meeting the mission of this company." Okay. All right. So that's initiative. Let's go on to agility. I don't want to give it short shrift here. Agility is becoming ever more crucial to staying in business. The reality is, whatever your business is today, it's unlikely that it's going to be the same 5 to 10 years from now. The business environment is changing so rapidly. How the world works is changing so rapidly. We have to stay agile. Okay, it's just, it is unacceptable in the business world today to not be agile. Okay. And here's the reality. We oftentimes don't know where the next challenge is going to come from. Right. I was having this discussion with a friend of mine last night. The hardest part of life is having the well, I don't know if it's the hardest part. Let me rephrase that. One of the hardest parts about life is having the humility to admit A, we're not clairvoyant, and B, we're going to be able to handle everything that's thrown at us. Not the case. I don't care. Not the case. We're not clairvoyant, and we're going to get thrown curveballs, and we're going to swing and we're going to miss them. Let's just admit that. And let's not be afraid to admit that to the people we're working with. That, again, that will do more for them in terms of creating loyalty to the company, because you're recognizing, I don't need you to be perfect. I'm not expecting you to be perfect. Don't walk around on eggshells. Let's rattle a few cages now and again. That's how you will instill in them the ability to be agile, because you may not be able to handle every curveball that's thrown at you, but your team might be able to, or at least as a team, you might be able to handle 95% of them. And that's fantastic, right? Again, going back to that platoon or that rifle team in the Marine Corps, each of those Marines has a certain function within his unit. Together, they make a very agile force, okay? And it's the job of the leader of the rifle team or the platoon to know, okay, to be agile enough and saying, okay, here's our objective. Okay, this is the way we're going to meet at this time. But now we got this other objective. We're going to meet it this way. Or, gosh, we're working toward our objective, and this unexpected thing happened. What do I need to shift in order to be able to continue progress without everybody getting killed? That's the agility that it takes in the battlefield in order to take an objective, get your people through safely. Okay. Now, of course, as I've said before on these shows, I don't consider business an existential operation. Okay. So it's not like, if we make the wrong decision in business, our people are going to get killed. Hopefully not. Okay. And not in general, certainly. But still, we have to be agile. We have to, and the key thing about being agile is we don't exactly know when agility is going to be necessary. If we're at the point where we've come to realize we are way off of where we need to be, agility is no longer the issue. Okay, the issue is we haven't been agile in responding to market forces and demands, et cetera. And so now we're looking at a much more systemic problem to get the business back on track. So what we want to do is empower everybody in our organization to consistently be on the lookout for things that may be happening that may necessitate our making a shift. And like I was saying with initiative, it's a lot easier to make a number of small shifts to keep on track than it is to suffer a major setback and now have to go through a major reorganization or whatever it takes to recover from that. Okay. And because each of your people is going to have different skills, different experiences, different competencies, okay, they have different abilities to see what may be coming at them. Okay, they have different functions within your organization. So they're able to look at what they're doing and have a sense of where things may be going, and especially where things may be going awry. And so you want those people to not only take the initiative, but to see in terms of agility, what needs to be done. And in most cases, they're going to be better placed than someone more senior who doesn't have that day-to-day contact on that particular issue. So that person who does is going to have better visibility on what needs to be done in order to keep the organization moving toward its goals. I'm just checking time here. Okay, we're good. Okay, so initiative and agility work in concert, just like when we were talking about last week, unity of effort and concentration of resources, they work in concert. Okay, so does initiative and agility. Agility is not going to happen at the senior level in the company. Strategic shifts will, but agility won't. That's just like on the battlefield. So if I'm the battalion commander, right, the shifts I'm going to make are going to be operational shifts. I'm going to be reliant on my small unit leadership to be agile in how they meet the objectives that I'm sending down to them in terms of operationally what I need to accomplish. So I'm setting the vision and I'm setting the goals on the operational level. And then I'm saying to my subordinates, okay, here's what I need to achieve. Make your plans accordingly. Take the initiative and be agile and keep me informed. So again, push information up. It's the same attitude we should be taking in our business organizations, okay? And by the way, we may not be the business owner, okay? But we may be able to instill these same principles into the company we work for, at least at the level that we're working. Okay, so if we're middle management, we can perhaps instill these ideals and these ideas into the people that are within our group. We can value initiative among the people we work with. We can instill a sense of agility within those people. Okay. And if the rest of the company isn't on board with that, well, whatever. Okay. But at least our department or our division will be working better as a result. We should have better employee retention. We should have greater employee satisfaction, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And by the way, one of the things you see in the Marine Corps is it has very high esprit de corps, the highest esprit de corps of any of the service branches. One of the reasons is because factors like initiative and agility are valued in the Marine Corps, openly valued, right? The medals you see on this side, that's right. I'm looking at myself in the thing and it's the wrong side. The medals you get in the Marine Corps oftentimes are a result of taking initiative. If you saw my medals, I would be able to show you the ones that I got specifically for taking initiative. Even as a chaplain, okay, I was not on the battlefield, but still initiative. When I was with the Marine Corps, initiative that I took was really valued. And I could see that in a different way than it was in the Navy overall, but similar to how it was in naval aviation and submarines, which are two of the communities I was involved in. Okay, so that's what I've got for today. Again, we're going to continue next week with 2 more of the fundamentals of warfighting from Marine Corps doctrine translated to business. We're going to keep this up for another couple of weeks so that we're getting all the fundamentals down, and then we're going to branch out from there. So I invite you to be with me every Tuesday morning, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, an hour in for Mountain and Central time. We're here every Tuesday. And tomorrow, Wednesday, is the Way to Wow show, People Making Money, where we take a broader look at financial success, how to gain professional success, how to invest well, etc. That show begins at 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and again, an hour in for Mountain and Central time. It happens every Wednesday. That's an hour. Today's show is a half hour. I invite you to be with us every week. Go to my YouTube channel. There'll be a link in the show notes. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and that way you'll get notifications when a new show is starting. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed what we talked about. I hope it's valuable for you. If you have ideas, thoughts, comments, please share them on various social media or send me an email. My email address, it will be there in the show notes after the show posts. And I look forward to seeing you next week, which leaves me only to say, as I sign off every show, Marie, darling, because you made such a big difference in my life, I've been inspired to help make a difference in other people's lives. You are and always will be my Belle. You all take care and look forward to seeing you tomorrow and every Tuesday then after that.